Good evening, everybody. I'm Aparna, and on behalf of the Sarmaya Arts Foundation, I welcome you to Sarmaya Talks at the Asiatic Society. Our first speaker for today is Miss Fiona Fernandez, Associate Editor at Midday and author of the weekly column Bombaynama. Her third book, H for Heritage, Mumbai, introduces the city's cultural history to new audiences, especially children. She is also the author of Bombay Meri, Jaan and 10 heritage walks of Mumbai and was co-researcher for the Mumbai Factfile. Fiona, over to you.
Good evening to all of you. Thank you for coming here on a public holiday on a very relaxed long weekend for most people. So I appreciate that. Thank you to the Sarmaya Arts Foundation for inviting me to be a part of this very important event where I'll be sharing space also with Dr. Andre Baptista. For me, being here at the Asiatic Society is almost like coming a full circle for me. It's where it started as a journalist. It's where I started my work as a researcher. It's where I started my work as an author. So to be standing here in this very prestigious, hallowed space is quite something. And to also speak about heritage, I think spending time over here in the library also got me to understand the importance of heritage, the importance of preservation of heritage, and also why we need to sort of keep in mind certain tenets that will take coming generations, that will hold them in good stead. So without any further delay, I'm going to start our talk. We'll proceed. So I chose a topic called All Access Heritage, Why Mumbai Needs an Open Door Policy. For a metropolis that's viewed as a world city, we woefully lack access and entry to several key landmarks and places of heritage value. This could create a widening disinterest if we need to stir curiosity and trigger engagement about our rich, diverse local history among young minds and adults alike. The reason why I chose this topic, so what I'm going to do is actually I'll take examples from my work as a journalist. I hope I don't ruffle too many feathers along the way, so I'll try to be kind. Like I was saying, the reason I chose this topic is because it stemmed from over 2 decades of my work as a journalist. So heritage is a beat that I've been covering for years now, and the one thing that constantly I tend to face, I continue to face, in fact I used to face it a lot when I was a rookie journalist, is access to heritage landmarks. So I come with all good intentions, press card, all ready to do my bit, get a story for my editor, but sorry, you can't come because, well, we don't have the time, or you need to make an appointment and things like that, so it left a very, it used to make me feel quite sad that here I am coming here to write about something that's important. They probably met with a milestone or something, but no access, so I think for me that is very important. Bombay and Mumbai is a city whose heritage has been inspired thanks to diverse influences. This is something that we know, so I'm just going to give you all a bit of context. It's also very important to start a dialogue to engage with public beyond the heritage enthusiast. And finally, more awareness means more accountability by the powers that be to conserve heritage spaces and sites. So coming back to that hurdle, that big challenge that I continue to face as a journalist, in terms of access or limited access, is that if I am facing this as a journalist coming for a very well-meaning project or an initiative, what is going to happen to somebody who is just a heritage enthusiast, or the person who's point number 2, where I've said engage with the public beyond the heritage enthusiast? What if he's somebody who just is curious about the city, not so much as most of us over here maybe, but wants to know more and just can't go because the place is shut. He only gets time on weekends and so on and so forth. So all these thoughts sort of, have been playing on my mind for years now, and they keep getting, I keep getting reminded of it each time I do a heritage story. Yes, the only time I've been able to get access to a place is, say, if I had a permission letter, say if I knew the founders, say if I knew the architects, and so on and so forth. So for me, those were the avenues by which I could enter a heritage space. But that was not enough, right? I am not that person. The idea was to make heritage more accessible to people beyond that. Uh, so because of that, one of the factors what sort of drove me during the lockdown, in fact, it's exactly 3 years, is where I decided to write a book called H for Heritage Mumbai. Uh, it's an idea that stemmed from the fact where I said that that person, who is a heritage lover, but who doesn't know how to start with things, let me make it simpler for him or her. So I thought let's break it down using the letters of the alphabet. So whether you have A for the Asiatic Society, Z for Zaveri Bazaar, and so on. I think discoverability across ages is confined to small pockets. And that's something that I keep seeing. Yes, there are numbers that are increasing in the city. I would go so far to say that in the past 10 years or so. But it's still a very small section of society who is invested in heritage. All of you over here, very knowledgeable audience, I'm sure, uh, would constitute this number of familiar faces. I'm so used to seeing some of you constantly be at such events. Uh, but the point is that we cannot live in such silos. We cannot be just this small section who are constantly driving the engagement, who are constantly driving the dialogue, who are constantly engaging with other people. That number has to grow. And in fact, I have a term for it. It's called the city warriors. I call ourselves the city warriors because that's all we do, right? When we speak about some new uh, discovery or some demolition. In fact, that comes to the next point on the slide, which says rampant loss of original streetscapes, altering the city's original character. We all know about the R word, right? Redevelopment. It's here. It's like climate change. You can't do anything about it. It's in our faces. It's happening at a rapid pace, and we need to deal with how it's going to end up modifying the city. Modifying the city in ways that we possibly don't have the tools right now. We may not even have the numbers right now. But the more people who are aware of what we are already sitting on, the treasure trove that is the city, I think we at least have a chance for more voices to come out from everywhere, from all neighborhoods, not just South Bombay. Then the third and the fourth point that I mentioned here, the need for a handy guidebook to nudge the non-heritage enthusiast who also loves the city but doesn't know where and how to access it, and school and college going students who wish to explore the city on their own. These two chunks of citizens, I constantly interact with them, whether it's in the newsroom, whether it's college students, school students who I'm starting to meet a lot more now because of the book. Uh, yeah, they want to know about heritage, but they really don't know where to start. And very often schools don't have any sort of program in their curriculum, whether it's I don't know, I mean, that will require another talk altogether, but they need to know more. So a couple of months ago, I was at the DAV school in Seawoods in New Bombay, Navi Mumbai, and the questions that came from students there were quite insightful. They uh, they want to know more about the original island city, and they asked me all kinds of questions about how to have access to places. In fact, one of the questions was about this landmark: is the Asiatic Society open? Can we just go there as school students? I said, yeah, of course. If you need to contact the office, and they'll help you around. So there is interest, but it's important to constantly keep that dialogue there. So I think it's important, and that's why I decided to write this book, which was meant, yes, for younger readers, but also for readers who are just curious about the city and who want to kind of rediscover their love for the city. So it's a handbook for this non-heritage buff, but also the others. So yeah, that's why the book was there. Now, what I decided to do is do a little uh, process called the letter hop. I'll go the letters of the alphabet, but I won't take all the letters simply because that would require a lot of time, and I don't want to eat into Andre's presentation as well. So we start with A for Asiatic Society of Mumbai as well as for Afghan Church. The Asiatic Society, as we all know, is emerging as a successful example where its status as a heritage landmark is celebrated to its fullest. In fact, I'm really happy because uh, I edit an around town section in the newspaper, and it's very heartwarming to see more and more events being held over here in this historic space. So I I hope that the programming becomes far more robust. I hope it caters to all kinds of people, not just a certain crowd, not just, like I said, I'd love to see more new faces inside this place. So they're a wonderful example of not only opening up avenues, but also different types of avenues, trying to at least tap into that. Some time back, they did something with a textile historian. So, there you had a whole bunch of students from textile institutes who were here. So it's good. I mean, and in fact, it should be far more the discoverability. I come back to that word, that's important. And then I come to the other extreme, which is the Afghan church. I don't know how many of you over here have been there. Yeah, fair number. What did you all think of the place, the stained glass work, right? That's what strikes you immediately. In fact, it's one of the most stunning assemblages of stained glass work in the city. And this is something that stained glass historians keep saying, they keep repeating about it. What is the concern is it requires a very, very comprehensive restoration program. So, in the course of the access that I got there, again because of a story, the priest in charge at that point had told me, he said that we face a lot of pressure from builders. This is something, of course, he told me off the record that he face the place is in a prime property, as you all know, and builders are just waiting to pounce on that land. So it took me a little bit by surprise that you wouldn't imagine a place of religious worship actually having this sort of a hurdle to face. Second problem is that the congregation who used to attend the Afghan church service there, most of them have shifted out from there. They've gone to the suburbs. So you, as it is, have a small section willing to fight for your parish. So again, problems there. The third issue that he told me about is general upkeep of the place. He showed me huge cracks in the stained glass. You had children who come there to play cricket. They actually use the grounds over there to play cricket. So imagine that, right? So lots of problems. This was a meeting I had with him almost, I'd say, about 4 to 5 years ago. I haven't been there after that. I've been keeping track about things. They do have events from time to time over there, but it is a space that we should all be very worried about. And I hope the right people, sort of come forward and do the needful over there. But if you're able to have access there, and it was quite nice to see so many hands go up here, you should see this space. It's a stunning spectacle. It's more museum and less place of worship, if I may say so. Move to the next slide. G for Gateway of India. Now, the most historic part of this monument is actually off limits. Where the troops of the 1st Battalion, the Somerset Light Infantry, they pass through the path right at the center, which you see there. That place is actually off limits. And how does one understand, right, the whole, how does one relive that part of history? So that's an issue when it comes to access. So it's a curious mix of where you have access, but at the same time there are issues over there. And people unfortunately can't go that close. I mean, all of us have been there, right? And very few of you can actually see the etching on the top, which talks about King George and the Delhi Darbar and all of it. So again, I feel it's a missed chance because you have nothing like information kiosks over there telling people that this is the historicity of the space. This was not the original space. You had a plaster of Paris structure, which was a temporary thing, and then George Whitehead was part of it, so on and so forth. So again, missed chance, missed opportunities, all access, but still no information to give to the curious reader. I move on to the next slide, which is H for Hornbill House. So again, in the course of my work, I was lucky to have access to some of its most precious sections. As you can see over here, 30,000, they have collections of 30,000 birds, 20,000 mammals, 10,000 reptiles and amphibians, 50,000 insects, the works. BNH's members in the past, they've collected, they've sourced information from across the Indian subcontinent. Some of its best research goes back all the way to the 1800s. Now, the last the last week was actually the 140th anniversary of the BNHS, and I'm not sure how many people actually knew about it. Where was the buzz? There was very little written in newspapers also. So I mean, we too are equally we are responsible for it to some extent. But I feel it was a missed opportunity again. We could have so easily done so many things. When I say we, I mean I wish the BNHS had done this all-out program, made it an open day, open up their doors, open up their sections, have people come there, see places, ask questions, see their exhibits, have access to the library. You can spend days over there. I mean, I was, for want of time, because I had a deadline, I had to leave early, but I think I was there for about 2 hours, and yeah, I returned. I said I'm coming back, and I did return, and it's beautiful. I mean, the way they have sort of built it with so much of care. You can see that with members. You have Dr. Salim Ali's work that's over there on display. So I mean, we as Bombayites are missing out on that, and I would hope that the BNHS also makes that kind of an effort to open up its collections to people, not just academics and scholars and people who are studying flora and fauna at some level, who are doing their PhDs. In fact, I feel, this is my opinion, of course, that it can be a wonderful space. They can give out a section of their space to make it a natural history museum. I mean, we've seen museums in London and so other cities. Why not make a certain section over there open to the public as a natural history museum? And as you all would have heard, the Tarapur Wala aquarium is going to be demolished. Why not use that as an opportunity to maybe create something here for Mumbai's marine life, wildlife? The shore walks of Mumbai, all of you would have heard of it, some of you would have. They're doing some great work. Why not tie up with them and open up the space? I mean, these are sitting treasure troves. People want to know about it. There's so much of interest in these things now because of climate change. We must do our bit to take that. And as I mentioned, suggestions. Children and adults must be encouraged to enter this place. It's a huge challenge. I cannot agree any more about it. But why not have schools and colleges make it part of their curriculum, where they are brought to these places? They're made to spend the entire day over there. Open up memberships to schools, parent-child programming. Do things like these, because it's the only way you can engage with the common person. Another point that I want to highlight here is corporate backing. I think it's very important. It's a space that's hugely it's lying, it's gone to sleep, as I put it. So it's very very important that we not forget the Hornbill House, the JG School of Art. Again, we all know Sir Jamshedji Jiji Boy's gift to the world of art, uh, finest sculptors, architects, so on and so forth. We know about the Kipling connection. Now, there's been talk about it being made a permanent memorial for Kipling. Kipling's father was one of the finest teachers over there. Kipling himself was born there. Rudyard Kipling was born there. But I mean, there was a lot of discussion before the lockdown. There were funds that were being raised, they were signed off. Again, we don't know what's happened after that. There were talks about literature festivals, poetry festivals, so many things to celebrate Kipling's presence in this campus. But once again, it's kind of gone to sleep over there, as I say. The Bombay School of Pottery. Now, I'm citing an example of this museum called the Zapurza Museum. Have any of you all visited this space? Yeah, and what did you think of it? It's quite, it's quite an eye opener in the middle of nowhere, right? So, by fluke, I was lucky to go there. Spent about half a day. Had wanted to return, in fact. So it's set up, as I've mentioned, by the P.N. Gadgil family, famous jewelers, and they've created this space with banks of the Khadakwasta reservoir. There are about 8 to 9 galleries, and each of them have been so painstakingly presented to encourage the lay person to understand heritage better, to understand culture better. And one of my favorite collections was the Bombay School of Art. I actually went there to see it. Imagine. So I feel that it's a lesson there, where why does one have to go all the way to Pune to understand something like this, which happened right here at the JJ School of Art in Bombay. Uh, it's great. I mean, how many of you have been there? How many of you have entered the campus, walked around? Yeah, it's gorgeous, right? Again, it's a space that uh, demands so much of interest that it's so insightful. The little corners, the old trees, the sculptures, the Gothic art over there, and Professor Mustansi Dalvi. I have to thank him. I wish he was here. I'm very grateful to him. So he organizes these walks once in a while inside the campus, and it's because of him that I got to see so many parts, so many little corners and contours of that space that we would have otherwise not known about. He shared a very important fact which I've attributed to him in the book, that there is this building, right? They call it Kipling's bungalow, and it's been mistakenly said that Kipling was born here. He wasn't born here. So at the point when Kipling was born, the structures inside the campus were still under construction, and there were these cabanas and tents where staff and faculty used to actually live. So Kipling was probably born in one of those. He was not born in this. So again, these are beautiful little anecdotes that will come to life. Hopefully, if this place is again made accessible. And for Naval Dockyard, again, I feel it's a missed opportunity. We're living in two different worlds. The great, rich maritime history that we have is not being put out there in the way it should be. Most of us would have visited the Balat Bandar Gatehouse Museum. That's shut. Uh, I feel the museum, I feel the Navy, in fact, should be doing something in sync with, especially the naval dockyard, because we're so used to seeing that lion gate and what's behind. Curiosity is always high. Though I'm told by some people at Intact that a maritime museum is being planned, and it's on its way to completion. So that's great. The Musgon Dock Museum is there. Yes, it's a beautiful, quaint little space, but it's not open to the public. They have these wonderful replicas of some of the finest ships that were built by the Musgon Dock. Like I've reiterated over there, citizens and tourists have little or no access to all of this glorious history dating back to when the Wadias were invited by the British to come here and build ships. So, in fact, just to put things into context, World Maritime Day was celebrated yesterday, September 28th. It could have been such a wonderful opportunity to do something, right? National Maritime Day falls in April 5th, I think. Again, wonderful way to get people together, create awareness, have talks, have walkthroughs. I feel it's a huge part of our history, especially because the city, we are a coastal city, and to not have a full-fledged museum, it's our loss at the end of the day. So yeah, something to think about. Next, I moved to the Sivri Cemetery. It's one of my favorite spaces in the city. I am very happy about taking people there for little curated walks whenever it's possible. So, in fact, I run a program for midday readers. It's called Walk with Midday. And one of the first walks that I did was inside the Sivri Cemetery. I believe it's one of the finest examples of an open air museum. It's a memorial. It's a great chronicle to understand rulers, leaders, civic administrators, all kinds of people who came here, from the British to the French to the Germans to the Italians. In fact, you have one section which is the Roman Catholic section, and you have the other side which is the Protestant section. It's beautiful. I mean, I encourage all of you to go there and experience this place. It also, like I said, offers a timeline for about foreign rule in Bombay. And in those days, epitaphs had many histories about those people. So there itself, you have these little nuggets about each about this person. Whether he was sacked by his previous employer, or whether he was scorned in love, and I mean, all kinds of things like that, which make made I think I've done about 5 or 6 trips over there, and each time I go, I end up discovering something new. You have Indian greats over there. You have F.N. Souza, who's buried there. You have Fearless Nadia, who's buried there. You have Dom Moraes, who's buried there. So I don't understand why such a space doesn't get its due. Yes, it's a living, breathing space simply because it's being used for burials. So I can imagine it being a logistic issue. But I encourage all of you to go there at least in small groups if it's possible because it's a remarkable space. And yes, for me, when I had to take a group of 10 midday readers, it was a nightmare because I think I needed a round of about 10 permissions just to get access there because it's run and I'm going to take a minute of your time to explain this. It's run by the Christian board and it's not just one denomination, it's several denominations. So I had to get permissions from each of those denominations. You can imagine what that one has to be very patient, yes, to get that because I had to take a video camera inside a cemetery which wasn't approved. One huge discovery that happened there was George Whitehead, uh, who happens to be buried there. His grave has been buried over, so there's no record. There's absolutely no record except in the register at the office. So he just goes by a number. So that's another kind of story which I'll say for another day about us not appreciating our heritage. I mean, imagine George Whitehead not having a grave. So that I come back to another point which I raised about the Gateway of India, about access. Because there's access to this space and there's really no policing or any kind over there. There's just this one caretaker and he has about 5 or 6 guys who work with him. Because of that, vandalism is something that has gone unchecked. Vandalism and even theft. The caretaker told me again off the record that old marble stones, that were built, that were used for epitaphs, tombstones of these graves have actually been stolen in the middle of the night. And like, who comes to a cemetery in the night? So this has happened. You have vandalism, you have all kinds of destruction. So you can barely see certain dates on these tombstones. So yeah, unfortunately, Civi Cemetery faces that issue, uh, and I really don't know what is the future in terms of keeping it in its current form, ensuring its heritage value is in good shape. Uh, One has to just hope that there are visionary people inside the cemetery running it who take note of it. U for University Building Complex. As I've mentioned, it was built by George Gilbert Scott, who also designed London St Pancras Station. It's a terrific example of Victorian Gothic as well as Venetian styles. The Rajabai Tower. Again, I had access to this space because of work. I'm very grateful that I was able to do that. Several permissions later, I was able to enter the space. I was doing a story on interesting collections inside Mumbai's libraries. I needed a month to complete it, which was a record. My editor said nobody else has been given so much of permission time. So, like I've shared over here, it possibly has Mumbai's biggest book. You have these amazing palm leaf and handwritten manuscripts. The French Traveler, which is supposed to be one of the oldest books, is there. So, again, treasures and realms of it. I needed an entire day, and it was still not enough to sort of get a full sense of what the library has. That's the literary side of it. Architecturally, those who have entered the space will agree with me that it's one of the finest displays where you have Indian craftsmanship merging, blending with European design ethics. And Gilbert Scott was very pleased and proud that he was able to blend the two, and he's written that in many of his notes as well. But like as I said, access is impossible unless you're a student, you're an academic, and a journalist like me, of course, would have to try several times more. But again, here is something that I want to say out here to this audience. Imagine having a literature festival conducted by the University of Mumbai right there. I mean, what is stopping the powers that be, the authorities, whoever it is, to have something like that over there and open it up for those 3, 4, 5 days? I mean, I think it's a great way because you're hitting two birds in one stone, right? Because you're enjoying literature in a space where it's supposed to be enjoyed, and you're also appreciating the heritage value and the architecture of the space. So that's my those are my thoughts about the university building complex. V for Victoria Terminus. This is a space, like I've mentioned, it's a complex heritage structure, huge. I mean, by any by anyone's stretch of imagination. Yet, huge sections of this space are inaccessible. Huge sections. So there's a viewing gallery that conduct where they conduct heritage walks, and um, I deliberately didn't go. I sent someone from my team, an intern, because I wanted to see what she came back with, and she was very happy with what she saw, and she enjoyed everything. But she said, no, I would have liked to see a lot more, because we grew up listening to our parents telling us about the grandeur of this space. So I would have liked to see a bit more. I would like to see more photographs. I mean, she had a long list of a wish list that she would have liked to see. So I feel that, again, great opportunity over here to do more with a space that's part of our sensibilities. I mean, Bombay, and you think Victoria Terminus or possibly maybe Gateway of India. Uh, it's plagued by the opposite problem again. High footfalls, prone to damage, vandalism. You have pedestrians, you have the vendors over there who, I mean, we ourselves in media have written tons of stories about, people doing all kinds of things to different facades of the space. When there was a restoration being done, it was contracted to someone who was not, I wouldn't say equipped to handle it, would be the wrong word, but not necessarily, he hadn't done his homework. So when those stained glass panels were remade, they look nothing like the original. So the person didn't even do his homework right. I mean, you have F.W. Stevens. If you've seen his hand drawn drafts and his plans for the Victoria Terminus, he was such a meticulous person. He had records for every corner of that building, including the washroom, including how much space had to be between each chair in the waiting room. That's how precise he was. So this person, of course, went ahead and redid sections of the panels in hideous designs, to put it mildly. So we need to be very careful about how we, when interventions like these are done also. And I know I'm digressing from my topic about access, but when you have access, you need to respect it. You need to do your homework well. Another issue with Victoria Terminus, which is it's a concern for me, is this whole plan about making it a smart railway terminus, and all these very fancy terms that are being floated very often. What is going to happen to the original structure? Sure, nothing's going to be, they're not going to come and touch it or demolish it, things like that. But it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There are, there is a template, there are checks and, I mean, you have a checklist, you have guidelines. So I hope the new planners who are going to build around this existing structure, I hope they respect and I hope they are mindful of the ethos of this space and why it was built and why it remains one of the most recognizable railway terminuses in the world. I now move to a few other examples that I feel deserve to be more accessible to the general public. One is the race course. Those of you among this audience who've been there will agree that it's a terrific space when it comes to understanding the history of the turf club. The move from Baikala to Mahalakshmi, why did it move? It was a dramatic time in the history of Mumbai. Uh, how Parel and Baikala were once these swish suburbs, and for several reasons, including bad sanitation, the plague, etc. How things then finally shifted to Mahalakshmi, but no access there unless you're a member, unless you have a very specific reason to be there. I think it has a great opportunity also because of the space. There's so much of space there, right? And I mean, I know the BMC is eyeing that space for several reasons, and I won't get into that, but it's a terrific space to be utilized for its heritage value, to be opened up to the public. Have walkthroughs inside, talk about its history as the premier race course of the Bombay presidency. Bring in a little bit about Pune. You can talk about. I was in Pune a couple of weeks ago, and I got to know that the Bombay and the Pune race, the turf clubs, they had a great relationship, and you had special trains that would run between Bombay and Pune to take these punters, and it phenomenal history there that can be explored and shared with the public. The Bombay High Court, again, robust example of tropical design being fused with Gothic architecture. However, there are very few ways to access to enter the space unless you have worked there or unless you know Mr. Rajan Jaikar who will give you a walk the small sections of the place. So I remember going there, in fact, for a walk. He led a group, and I was quite disappointed when the walk ended after only a certain section. I mean, and, from a distance you could see all these beautiful pillars and flora and fauna doing all kinds of fun things. It was just beautiful, but yeah, uh, again a space that requires that should be opened up to the public. General Post Office, great example of Indo-Saracenic architecture designed by John Begg. Uh, a lot of people should visit that space because you enter and that dome sort of just blows your mind. And again, because of work, lucky to have visited the space all the way to the dome, the terrace when they were restoring it. Uh, phenomenal space. They played a huge role in terms of contributing to staff during the World War One. So there is a memorial over there. There's a plaque where you have the names of these people who sacrificed their life during World War One. So I encourage you all to go there. Thankfully, that part is accessible to the general public, so you can actually go there and see it. But again, the space is open only when you have walks. I think they opened it up a couple of years ago for the Kala Ghoda Arts Festival. These are just three examples. I mean, there are tons of other examples that I can go on and explain to you. But I think these are just small examples of spaces that come into our vision almost every week, every day, depending on where we live. Uh, and I'm sure we all want to go inside. Let's see how it is. What's the architecture about? I would like to know about the architect, for example. What was his thought? Are his plans still on site there? Things like that. So I think it's very important for us to understand the need for access, because with it comes awareness. And yes, of course, it's going to need a lot of coming together of minds. You need private investors, you need stakeholders like them, you need the city, you need the, I think municipal bodies have to come together. That's a huge question mark. And the state also needs to be involved at some level because it's going to require a mammoth effort. But we can start somewhere. So the way forward, I call this the Hope Charter. Some of the challenges that face these sort of ideas and plans. One is lack of funding and support. Support, as I just explained earlier. How does one create buzz about heritage and engage with the public? What do we do about insufficient, uninformed staff, lack of keenness to work on weekends and holidays? Now, that my solutions, of course, are right there, where I say that keep heritage of historic value open to public on weekends. So many cities across the world do that. Where it's kept open on weekends. I remember I was traveling to Auckland many years ago, and it was a post office, coincidentally, in one of the neighborhoods, started by some British historian. And it was open on Sunday. We could just walk in, go see the oldest post box, a photograph of the first envelope that was received. I mean, stamps that were issued by that post office. So yes, these are ideas that one can just put out there, raise it out. Ticketed entry is a way to sort of raise additional revenue. In my second point, which I raised as challenge, where I said how to create buzz about heritage, I think young people, we should tap into them far more than we do right now. It's very important to encourage them to sign up as guides, as social media influencers, itinerary planners. I think it's very important to not underestimate them, but I think it's important to realize their potential because they are interested. It's not like young people are not interested in heritage, and I see that every day. Like I shared a while earlier during one of my earlier slides, I see that they are interested, but it's how you package it to them. It's how you sell it to them. It's how you market it to them. It's how you make them an equal stakeholder. How you make them feel important about it, rather than them saying, "Oh, it's all for old people. Heritage is for old people, scholarly people, and things like that." I think we must engage with schools and colleges at far more cohesive, comprehensive level. It must become part of the curriculum. That's something that I constantly bring up whenever I get the opportunity to speak at a platform. I think project work in schools and colleges should be in such a way where it's in sync with people from the heritage community in some way. There should be that jugalbandi where they can actually spend more time with people and say, hey, this is not such a bad thing to do after all. Maybe I should pursue it, things like that. So I think engagement with young people is a big one. I personally feel, even as a journalist, when I write about a restored heritage building, my first my first thought is how am I going to impress upon, how am I going to interest the 21-year-old reader of midday rather than the 55-year-old who I know is already going to read about it because he or she is invested in the city and has been. The 21-year-old has to still figure things out. And I mean, trust me, I spend a lot of time rewriting my intros uh, when I want to kind of get them engaged. My wish list. So these are examples of small steps that can begin this movement for access and awareness. Maybe longer hours at the museums on some days of the week, simply because all of us lead or rather keep long working hours, long commutes, so many other things. So maybe on some days of the week, a space like this, for example, it looks spectacular at this hour, right? I mean, how nice to actually do a walkthrough inside this space with all the statues, etc. The third UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is the Victorian Gothic Ensemble, the Oval Maidan, and the Art Deco buildings, I feel they should have a consolidated space somewhere where people can actually go and experience, like an experience center, where they can actually see what great work these citizens did. These amazing citizens. I was very lucky to document their struggle from those early days, 2013, 2014, right up to when they were conferred the tag. The inscription happened in 2019, and phenomenal work. But I feel it's again confined to a very small section. People really don't know what they've done. Okay, Art Deco buildings, lovely, and you speed up, you speed across. So I think it's very important that we have some kind of a space to document, chronicle this, and people have access to that space. So whether it is the lay public or whether it's a heritage enthusiast, they can come there and see the great work that they've done, learn from it, get inspired from it, maybe try the same thing if you're a Matunga or Sion resident where you have your own issues with Art Deco buildings there, with redevelopment. Many museums in heritage neighborhoods like Kotachiwadi or Anwar. Andre is here and we spoke a little bit about this earlier. I think it would be a wonderful addition to the space simply because you don't want to interfere, you don't want to come into people's homes, right? You don't want to just use spaces like these beautiful neighborhoods as a public space. Yes, you want to understand about how they have maintained the heritage value of that space, but it should be done sensitively, it should be done organically, it should be done seamlessly. So, a great way to acclimatize, to familiarize people about these hamlets, these villages that continue to exist in the city despite everything that's going around them. I think it'll be lovely. I've, of course, just mentioned two spaces, there'll be several others. Uh, One neighborhood like that, which has been, I'd say 90% of it has been completely damaged, demolished, is the Charai neighborhood in Thane. I don't know how many of you have been there, visited relatives, friends. I live very close to that space. I live in Mulund. So Thane used to be a space where I would go to meet my friend. Most of them lived in the area around St. John the Baptist School and college and church. And I went there a couple of years ago, more recently, and I was shocked to see that those quaint bungalows and villas, standalone structures, very similar to what you see at Kotachiwadi or Anwar, gone, just gone. There's no trace of it. You have a very fancy glass building that's come in its place or it's on its way. I think there are two or three buildings that I counted which are still there, and I don't think they're going to survive. So they are going as we speak, as I mentioned earlier. Redevelopment is here to stay. So how are we going to at least tell people that there was this here once upon a time? How are we going to tell the next generation, in fact, for that matter? It's very important. And my last suggestion, a space in the suburbs. I think it's very important to do this in the suburbs to celebrate and document Mumbai's single screen Art Deco cinemas. We've already lost several iconic film studios, RP studios. We know about the plight over there. I say suburbs because, like in South Bombay, you have Eros, you have Metro, you have so many other places which have thankfully got a fresh lease of life. Life, some of them. The suburbs, there was no chance. I mean, have you all seen the Aurora Cinema? It's gone. It's such an important landmark, but it's gone. It's not even a suburb, it's Matunga. Single screen cinemas right through the suburbs, both eastern and western sides, no longer exist. They've been built over. You have all kinds of other things. My own suburb of Mulund, we don't have any single screen cinemas anymore. They're there, but it's probably going to be taken over by a builder very soon. So these are all very important examples to share simply because with access comes awareness, and if we don't have that awareness, we're not going to know about what is around us in the first place. Forget about something that's in South Bombay or another part of the city. I think citizen-driven initiatives is the key over here, and we've met with success in the past, whether it's the Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, whether it's the Art Deco, the win at UNESCO for the Art Deco movement. We've seen how citizen groups can do their bit, can be dogged, can be persistent, can be so patient with ensuring that they get things done. So I think it's very important to remember this at some point, as we move forward, as we look at ways and means to protect our heritage. I move to the last two slides. More access means better preservation. I've used the example of the Esplanade building, one of my favorite stories. We can see what has become of it, right? But a huge reason why when I say as a member of the press, we were able to actually report about it is that we had access to the space. We actually had access to the damage and the interventions, the mindless interventions. There was a restaurant right below there where, despite the scaffolding, they went and added marble to the flooring, they added these fancy chandeliers to the ceilings. All this was going on when this is of course before the full scaffolding came up. All this was going on unchecked. Nobody came to tell them, why are you doing this? Because the press, and not just Midday, all the press, and I'm grateful for that. We actually constantly put pressure on the authorities. We put pressure on the landlords, and we were at least able. When I say we, I also must include the heritage community, because you had so many of them coming forward, putting their hands up and saying, yeah, we're going to fight this case. Because of that, at least the demolition was stayed. At least the demolition was stayed. I mean, we all know about the cast iron architecture over here, the finest in the country, perhaps. That's still there, and I mean, the legacy of its past. Well, that's tremendous. Whether it's Mark Twain living here, or whether it was its chandeliers, and so many other unique architectural gems about this place. But in a way, yes, because of the access, we were able to write about it. And that's the only way. Yes, it broke our hearts to see what had happened inside, especially when you would refer to photographs from the 40s, 30s, and before that, to see what became of it. But at least it helped in that way. Then I come to the point about the residents of the Art Deco buildings opposite Oval Maidan and the Marine Drive promenade. So what they've been doing on the side, apart from of course being these very stoic, strong voices to protect heritage, is that they are also now restoring their own buildings. The Swastik Court, which is on the stretch that faces the Oval Maidan, they completed a restoration in January 2023, and they had in-house experts They did their studies and they did their studies of the repair work. They actually got the entire thing completed at half the cost. They released a handbook, and now all the other buildings that require restoration in that stretch are actually referring to it. So they've started a terrific trend, right? I mean, so access uh, equals preservation of heritage also, and with minimal intervention, because they respect and understand and appreciate these structures. Simply, they're because they're residents of those spaces, they are that much more particular and sensitive about it. So, again, a great example about what access can do to a space. And finally, people are our biggest and most powerful tool. We all know that. I've explained that in so many with so many examples. I'd like to leave you all with two examples which are not on the slide. One is from my experiences at the Goa Heritage Festival. It happened last year in November, and again, one of the finest examples of a quaint idea but working remarkably well. So they had taken a quarter, it was a heritage quarter facing the Mandavi river front in Panjim, and they opened up sections of people's homes to actually access. So you could go inside, see people's homes. There was art on display over there. Certain sections were given out for the books to be sold. It was a great way to experience heritage. I mean, so close, up close and personal. I mean, literally. So about 8 to 9 buildings in that quarter had been opened up, and they would be shut by about 8 o'clock. That was one thing. The second part was where they invited people to talk about the culture of Goa, and not in your typical way. So you had a section which you had a dance expert who actually came to show you a crash course on jiving. You had the screening of that famous movie Lorna about the famous singer from Goa. So they gave you these little dipsticks about heritage, but they put it in such a way that you didn't even think that it was, such an ominous, overwhelming subject. And I felt that was really good because while I enjoyed the entire time over there, I ended up speaking to a few visitors and they all said the same thing. They said that, we didn't know that Goa had these beautiful gems, or we didn't know that we pass by this home every day and it's so beautiful inside. And, they were, of course, grateful to people like Heta Pandit and Vivek Menezes for putting this whole thing together. So, again, an example of introducing heritage within a precinct, but taking it to such an extent that you don't even it's done organically, I think, for want of a better word, and that's one example. And I'd lastly like to leave you with a thought about something which I had read about and I experienced last year when I'd gone to Madras or Chennai. They have something called Madras Day. It's observed on August 22nd, 16. The date rather was August 22nd, 1639. I'm going to read an extract from their website. This date was fixed when a sliver of land where Fort St. George stands today was transacted by the East India Company. The deal was struck by Francis Day, his Dubash called Beni Thimappa, and their superior, Andrew Cohen, along with the local Nayak rulers. So that's how Madras Day came to be. The fort was there, and around that settlements began to be constructed. You had villages, you had towns, and then you had the city of Madras. But the actual idea of having a Madras Day was by three people, including the famous historian, late S. Muthaiya, journalist called Sashi Nair, publisher called Vincent D'Souza. They all came together and they said, "Let's do something about this date. Let's make a hue and cry. Let's create some buzz around it." They were joined by others, and over time, what you have right now and what I witnessed last year was they have a month-long itinerary of programs around the culture and heritage of Madras, Chennai, and they are very keen, or rather, they continue to be very keen about bringing this outside those typical spaces. So whether it's a Durbar Hall, whether it's a museum, they actually take the idea to campuses, they take the idea to corporates. They encourage people across the board to be a part of it. So you have food fests, you have bike rallies, you have car rallies, you have literature festivals, you have poetry festivals. I mean, the works, all kinds of people across age groups, across interests are involved in it. And I mean, I was unfortunately there for just a day. I didn't imagine it to be such a success. I could only hear good things about it. In fact, I want to make it more than a month. So it left several thoughts in my head that why can't we do something like this in Bombay? Maybe there'll be a debate around the date. When is Bombay Day, Mumbai Day? But if we want heritage to be a part of our lives and we want it to be more accessible, I think somewhere someone has to take that step to make it part of our larger engagement processes. Thank you. Any questions from the audience?
Okay. Yeah, we are open for questions now. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you for this wonderful lecture. And you mentioned about the Victoria Terminus. Okay, and you chose the name Victoria Terminus. Why not the CSMT?
Because with heritage, it's important to go back to history and to explain why it's Victoria Terminus. Yes, it is CSMVS right now, and I think all of us young people know about it. But when I talk about it in the language of heritage, I choose to call it Victoria Terminus because that is what it was when it came to the city, when it was built in the city.
Because many,
In the book, if you read my book, I have mentioned CSMVS.
because many
Sorry, I've
young,
mentioned CSM.
because many young generation are going to read your book, so they know the station like CSMT, not the Victoria Terminus or VT. So that's why I ask.
Sure. I have explained about that in the book.
Thank you, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, thank you for the lovely talk. I just wanted to know, don't corporates want to do this CSR and help these beautiful institutions survive? Because a lot of CSR money is being spent for various, in various areas, whether it is environment, whether it is restoration of monuments. So, do you not in your capacity reach out to these corporates to invite them to ensure that these monuments survive and thrive?
I do mention it in my column. I mean, I try to do that as much as possible. Beyond that, as a journalist, unfortunately, one really can't, step on toes. But having said that, yes, Mumbai is still far better. I mean, the spirit of philanthropy, as I shared earlier, it's there, but more needs to be done. See, the David Sassoon Library is one example where you had the Jindals who, supported the restoration. So there are many spaces like that in the city. I mean, there's a whole list of it. It's good work, but I feel it's not enough. More people should take a cue from that.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was riveting. I was curious about what you said about the Natural History Museum. And if you go to, and using the heritage name, the Prince of Wales Museum, you have an entire section given over to natural history, and that part is coterminous with the BNHS. And there's actually a door which goes between them, so that's in some sense met. I completely am sympathetic to the idea of a natural history museum, which I love. But that does exist. And there are also elements in the Nehru Science Center where you have an entire section on dinosaurs and flora and fauna, and from a pathogenic and rodent perspective and snakes, the Hafkin Institute. So there are elements where it's scattered around the city.
Yeah, I agree. I agree about those spaces and very aware of those. What I'm trying to highlight over here is that if you are at the BNHS, if you are at the building, why not make it that much more engaging, right? And if we are looking at younger people, sure, more the merrier, right? I mean, our city can do with many more spaces. So if you have, yes, of course, the natural history section at CSMVS is there, but why not have one more space And if you are in a building that is known for its historic connections and collections, it would be that much easier access to it as well. And you have the expertise also right there in house.
Thank you.
Okay.
Subscribe to Sarmaya and be a part of the stories and conversations around art, history, and culture.